How does it feel to ride out a hurricane in a Florida manufactured home community? I've been through several, and in this podcast, I'm reporting on Hurricane Milton from preparation to cleanup. You may be considering these communities, or perhaps you live in one. Either way, I'm sure you can benefit from my successes and my mistakes. Don't let those 5-second sound bites you see on television keep you from a lifestyle that can fulfill your dream and meet your needs. I also tested a new type of generator, and I'll give you that report separately at the end of the podcast. Let's dig in. Can a manufactured home community in Florida make your retirement dream come true? I'm Russ Watson. Join me as I share over a decade of experience helping folks who are living in or looking at this active lifestyle. Welcome to episode 5 of the Florida Manufactured Home Living Podcast. The official season for hurricanes in Florida begins on June 1st and ends November 30th of each year. Hurricane Milton made landfall on the west coast of Florida late in the day on October 9th, 2024. It crossed over through central Florida and exited across the Space Coast the next day. But preparations for this hurricane began long before that. I start thinking about hurricane preparation in the early summer. I take a look at the trees and see if they need trimming. In Florida, they do what's called a hurricane trim, which reduces the foliage and hence the wind drag on the tree. I look at the roof for any loose shingles and I check the siding to be sure everything is secure. I guess I missed that one this year because I got a note from the park manager about a week before the hurricane telling me she'd seen some loose siding on the back of the house. I fixed it right away and in time for the hurricane. I was a little lax on the tree trimming too. I had berries on my palm trees, but when I finally decided to do something, it was too late to hire anyone to trim them. There are some supplies that run out rather quickly as soon as a hurricane threatens, so you really want to keep them in stock. This would include spare extension cords and power splitters, a generator, at least 2 cans of propane for the gas grill, 2 to 4 5-gallon cans for the generator, either full or empty, rechargeable batteries for flashlights, a few blue tarps of various sizes along with tie-down line and fasteners for covering windows or openings, and a couple of portable lanterns that ideally run off rechargeable AA's. Another handy item is a rechargeable battery bank from which you can charge your iPhone or iPad. If you're not strong enough to easily lift and pour a 5-gallon gas can, which weighs about 35 pounds, be sure to buy a larger number of 2-gallon jugs. It'll make your life much easier. It seems like around October 5th, I started hearing about this storm in the Gulf that might turn into something. Over the next couple of days, it became clear this might be something the west coast of Florida would have to deal with, and maybe a minor irritant where I lived on the east coast. But then it intensified to a Cat 5 storm, and that's the real deal. It was around the 7th I started serious preparations. I had 20 gallons of gas in stock. I had never put gas in my generator, although I did fill it with oil. Long-term storage of a generator with gasoline in it requires fuel stabilizer, and even then you can get gunk in the carburetor, making it hard or impossible to start. So I didn't fill it or test it, waiting for power to actually go out before I did. I filled the car with gas. I had about 3 cases of bottled water on hand, which seemed like it would be plenty. But I have heard of situations where water from the tap stops due to a power loss at the pumping station. So I also filled 3 5-gallon water jugs and left them behind a decorative shower curtain in the tub in the spare bathroom. My plan was to use this water for sponge baths and general cleaning. I charged up all the batteries in the house. I'm a big fan of flashlights and lanterns that use rechargeable batteries, so I keep plenty of spare batteries on hand. This allows me to cycle them into the charger while still using the flashlights and lanterns. I also charge the 3 battery packs I have that have outlets to run phones and anything else that charges from a USB port. A couple of these are pretty large, and they will recharge a phone or tablet 3 to 5 times or more. So with these charged, even if I don't have a generator or any other source of power, I can at least keep my phone running for a week or more. One of these packs can be charged with a built-in solar panel, so cycling them back and forth could extend that time even further. I have a gas grill, and I keep several tanks of propane in stock, so I was all set there. In fact, one year back in Connecticut, we had a power outage on Thanksgiving, and we cooked a turkey and all the fixings on the gas grill, so I was confident it would meet all my everyday cooking needs. I'm not a big fan of freeze-dried survival food, preferring jarred and canned food along with leftovers. So right before the hurricane was going to hit, I cooked a whole chicken on my rotisserie and a sirloin tip roast in the oven. I figured that was good for a few days, along with fresh vegetables, salad, and so forth. I also froze quite a few bottles of water. Should there be an extended period of outages, these can be used as drinking water later. You need to do this a couple days in advance. Some people use empty half-gallon milk containers. The idea is to get enough ice in your freezer and refrigerator such that food will stay cold for several days, even if you have no power at all. A popular trick is to put a plastic glass full of water in your freezer until it is frozen solid. Then find a place where it will sit upright and put a penny, a nickel, or something similar on top. This is a telltale in case, for some reason, your freezer loses power for an extended period of time, thaws, and then refreezes. This is especially important if you evacuate. When you check it, hopefully that penny is still on top. But if it's halfway down or at the bottom, you know that whatever is in that freezer thawed and must now be discarded. Another thing to keep on hand is some extra cash. Often with power outages, the data lines needed to accept credit cards are out, but you can still use cash. On the morning of October 9th, I closed the hurricane shutters on all the windows, finished tying down garbage cans, outside storage units, the gas grill, and stored other loose items in the shed. The storm was not due until late that evening or early in the morning, so I went back to work on the computer and figured I had the whole day to get a few things done. The day turned foreboding, with thunderstorms and frequent lightning. Without warning, the power went out that afternoon. Honestly, I was surprised and wondered what happened. I fueled the generator and she fired right up. I ran an extension cord out to the freezer in my shed and another one into the house to run the refrigerator and the all-important coffee maker. Hurricane Milton was still well off the west coast, but that put us in the forward right quadrant, which is the strongest. There were over 120 tornado warnings across Florida in a 24-hour period. I didn't find out until the next day that a tornado about 5 miles east of me was the cause of the outage. With the most important things covered, I added more extension cords to the Wi-Fi modem, a TV in the screen porch, and in to run my computer systems. The downside was the generator noise was deafening, even inside with the doors closed. I think I may use a smaller and quieter generator next time, keeping the large and noisy one as a backup and for running the water heater occasionally or major cooking events where I might use a tabletop oven or long-term use of the microwave. Thankfully, I also had an EcoFlow Delta 2 power station, So I was able to turn the generator off at night while powering the refrigerator and the freezer with the Delta 2. More on that later in the podcast. About 2 hours after we lost power, a friend called and asked if I could come over after the storm to get her generator going. It was raining with moderate winds, so I went over right away and got her hooked up. I figured it was better to get her generator going right away so she could keep her freezer and the refrigerator going rather than wait for the next day. Throughout the community, neighbors were helping neighbors with last-minute preparations, putting up hurricane shutters, picking up loose items in the yard, and tying down things that were staying outside. This is the nature of these communities and a huge plus for senior retirees. You just won't find this kind of community teamwork in most neighborhoods. With that done, I went home, watched a little news coverage of the hurricane approaching the West Coast and making landfall, and then I went to bed. Thursday morning arrived with the storm just clearing the East Coast, and while windy in my community, it wasn't all that bad. Still no power, so my next mission was fuel management. The neighbor I had helped out only had one 5-gallon can and was running out. I also had used around 5 gallons, but I had 15 left. I shared what I had with her to keep her going and went looking for gas. The roads were blocked out of our community in one direction by down power lines and whole buildings that had been destroyed by what I found out to be was a Class EF3 tornado. So I went the back roads and found a gas station about 3 miles south that had fuel. On the way, I saw more evidence of the tornado's power when I passed by a huge warehouse that was destroyed. Power lines were down here too, and I began to appreciate the wait for power to be restored might be quite a while. Friday morning, I had a doctor's appointment. I was surprised they stayed open, but in their area, they had power and the weather was fine. My route took me along the road where the tornado hit, and I could see massive amounts of power line damage, as well as many buildings destroyed. Since this was likely the route power fed to our community, it occurred to me I might be on a generator for many days. I also passed by one of our neighboring manufactured home communities where the tornado had made a direct hit. It caused a number of fatalities and destroyed or severely damaged many homes. With the hurricane well out in the Atlantic, it was time to return to the lifestyle that we enjoy. So that afternoon, I had a couple gals over for lunch and Domino's. I cooked barbecued ribs, baked beans, and coleslaw. Call it a hurricane party. Saturday morning, I got all my computers back online and was able to get some work done in between texts and phone calls from friends and family, making sure I was all right. Normally, I play a crazy game called Romoli in the clubhouse on Saturday nights, but with no power, it was canceled. So I made some chicken cacciatore and pasta on the gas grill. It came out delicious. I ended up lending one of my USB power banks to another friend who did not have a generator and had no way of charging her phone to keep in touch with her family. That is the way these communities work, and the reason you want to be in one. Everyone looks out for each other, and even small differences go away in times like this. Sunday, still no power, but by now I had fans, lights, and lots of things hooked up to my generator, so I was able to host my Sunday card game with friends. It just so happened that Monday was my birthday, and they brought a birthday cake. In this type of community, even with no power, most everybody gets right back to helping their neighbors and enjoying fun with their friends, regardless of the hardships that still exist. Monday, I traveled to my old community in Sebastian to visit friends for a birthday luncheon and a game of Mexican train. They had a cake for me too and insisted I take home the leftovers. The clubhouse was still closed with no power, so we played our weekly Jokers and Pegs game at my house that night. It was great fun, and one of the gals brought me, yep, another birthday cake. What a great way to spend a birthday with friends united by a sense of community. The downside was my refrigerator was overflowing with birthday cake. Tuesday morning, I finally got through to someone at the power company to give me an honest estimate for restoration. It was good news, as they expected power back by midnight. In fact, it was restored early in the afternoon. Social life continued, and I had a friend over for dinner to celebrate the return of regular power service. We dined on fresh pineapple from my garden, grilled on the Barbie with ham steaks, and served with coleslaw and homemade cornbread. Yet another post-hurricane celebration. Wednesday, I put the hurricane shutters away, serviced the generator, restored the house and yard to normalcy, and got back to work. There was a huge pile of laundry to do, a dishwasher full of dishes, and I still had those pesky trees out front that needed trimming. I got it all done by Thursday, and life was back to normal, so I started in on this podcast. I heard from some friends in communities right in the path of the hurricane in the center of the state. They too had minor damage, with carports and screen porches being the major items on a few homes. Some had power outages, others had no phone or internet. In one community where all the internet and phone service was out, there was one fellow who had some high-tech way of hooking up to Wi-Fi. He got the word out to the community that if they just drove by his house in a golf cart, they were free to use his Wi-Fi to communicate with family and friends. My guess is that guy won't have to buy a drink at the community pub for quite some time. Everyone I talked to had the same story. Friends and neighbors pitched in, and they all made it through together. It's times like this when you realize just how precious life is in these communities. Oh, and let me tell you about my new toy, the EcoFlow Delta 2 power station. But first, now that you've seen how we handle hurricanes, I want to tell you how to get started finding your dream home in one of these communities. Hurricanes in Florida are certainly a consideration. With proper preparation and support of your friends and neighbors, these events can be far less catastrophic than the media would have you believe. More than ever, though, location is one of the keys to choosing a community. So to get you started finding your ideal community, I'm offering our resource guide and statewide community lists, along with free membership in our Inner Circle. Inner Circle members are welcomed with a Get Started video that lays out your options. Knowing all the options will help you target the right opportunity to fulfill your dream while avoiding choices that will not meet your needs. Just enter go-to-innercircle.com and sign up now. This is the welcome page for the Inner Circle at Florida Manufactured Home Living. It's pretty easy to remember. Go-to-innercircle.com, all one word. The EcoFlow Delta 2 power station is a new type of emergency power source made possible by advances in the battery industry. The power station holds a kilowatt hour of 120-volt AC power and will handle up to an 1,800-watt load with surge loads up to 2,700 watts. To give you an idea of its capacity, I was able to plug in my Keurig coffee maker and make a fresh cup of hot coffee, utilizing only 4% of the power in the unit. You can run most any appliance that you can plug into the wall for a pretty fair amount of time. You can recharge this device from your generator in a couple of hours. In this power outage, I used it to allow me to shut my generator off when I went to bed and keep my refrigerator and freezer running about 6 more hours. This meant they were only off a couple hours in the early morning when it was cool before I fired up the generator again. That 8 hours without a generator screaming at you is really valuable. You could also use this to run appliances a smaller generator could not run, and then recharge it from that generator. This is a configuration I may try next time, just to avoid the noise a large generator makes. In shorter power outages, the Delta 2 is so much more convenient than getting out a gas generator, running cords, filling tanks, etc. If you envision using it for longer periods or without a generator, this unit can also be configured to charge from external solar panels. You can purchase similar units with much larger capacities as well. It's a great piece of kit. That's my report after Hurricane Milton. See you next time.